Hello.
Hey.
How you doing?
Good. I'm so glad to connect and have this conversation. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. Yeah,
Yeah.
shadow contracts, I feel like, especially in sales and marketing, are really important to talk about right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I think like you and I kind of had a conversation earlier this week and kind of dug into this topic a little bit and realizing the more we dug into it, how deep it goes, how how many codes there are around this from the lack matrix and how it might be honestly tripping up any of us who are trying to have a very heart-centered business in a very capitalistic based matrix, grid of business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it really feels like it can prevent you from even putting yourself out there. At least that's what I've experienced, is like there's something like holding me back from marketing and
Yeah.
from sales, that just like it feels manipulative and it feels like icky. I know
Right.
a lot of people experience that,
Yes.
especially being more spiritual. It's like we have good intentions
Right.
for customers, and it can feel like when we're marketing that we're trying to deceive them, or try to get them to do something that maybe they don't even really need, but we know they need it.
Right.
Know in your heart that you can really help them, and you know that's what feels so discongruent about marketing often, is like, and that's the way that everybody's talking about doing it. Like, here's a sales script, like, like, do it this way. And it just, there's something that feels off about it. And when it feels off, the chances of you actually making that sale go down, because
Yes.
it's not in residence.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, the shadow contract of marketing is manipulation,
Yes.
basically.
Hmm.
And so we need to look at that, and we need to dissolve that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think as empaths, we're so highly attuned, even if it's unconsciously, we feel it, of the energy of any situation like that. And I'll speak for myself, and I'm sure anyone who's been in the personal development, spiritual business arena for very long will resonate with it, that it's even within that conscious business building community, we've all, or I have signed up for classes over the last decade only to realize like it's just some other form of manipulation that they're inviting me to learn in terms of sales, marketing, or enrolling clients. Like even that term of enrolling clients to me, like if I really break it down, um, gets to a very lack-based shadow contracty place.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you had similar experience in some of your.
Yeah, like the enrollment call, like sales script that I was given. It basically, like, in terms of storytelling, it is about like walking somebody through the story of
Mhm.
the transformation you're going to offer. But really, like, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, storytelling works for a reason. It's how our minds are working. It's a sense making mechanism, basically. But where the problem comes in is, um, and I know it's hard because it's like, this is the thing that works, but it works in lack, not necessarily in abundance. It's wedging the gap between where you are and where you want to go.
Mhm.
And it's true, like, you can help somebody create a transformation that will change where they are.
Right.
But the problem gets to, and you said it so wonderfully before when we were talking about this, it's when that gap is like, trying to like really find the right words, but it's when that gap is like really widened, where it's like it
Mhm.
makes you feel like you're the only one that's going to help me with this.
Right.
And like you said, it was like taking away their power.
Yeah, it's like overexposing a little bit too of them, but it's like I think for me, like the shadow contract underneath it that I was being invited to even create in the moment with that kind of enrollment call, right? Is that, well, if they, my role in this is to help them see that they need me,
Yeah.
that they have a problem that only I can solve,
Yeah.
right? Kind of a thing, which means, that I'm coming in not seeing them in their power.
Yeah.
I'm already saying like you don't have what you need or what it takes, or I don't see you as whole. I don't see you in your power. You need to give your power to me because I can help you.
Yeah.
And even the couple of times, 5, 6 years ago where I was like you, like ran through that script a couple times with people only to get off the phone going. And those, even when those kinds of people said yes to an enrollment call with me, I found that the whole relationship that was created as a, even as a client, um, it nothing ever felt right. It always felt heavy the whole time. And it took me a couple of times of like, using that technique of realizing like this just feels all wrong to me. It felt icky. And I mean, literally getting to the place multiple times with my coaching business over the last decade, going, if this is what it takes to be successful and to, create value plus, income for myself, I'm out. Like I'm just out. I can't do this.
Yeah, that's how it's felt for me too. It's made me have a relationship with the word selling, of like that, like marketing, I feel like I have a better relationship with it now, but selling, it
Hmm.
still feels like there's this like manipulative aspect to it,
Hmm.
where it's like, yeah, I'm trying to make somebody see like, oh, you need me.
Yeah.
No.
You need me.
Like, yeah,
Give
I
me
can,
your power and I'll fix you. Yeah. It's like,
yeah,
wait,
yeah.
no.
I can help you see you with the work that I do in branding, but like you don't need me. Like I can
Mhm.
help you so much. I can help you like grow, but
Mhm.
it's more of a relationship rather than somebody like needing me,
Right.
you know?
And I think the fear is that scarcity lack based thing that creeps in for us is if, well, or that's kind of what I was sharing with you earlier this week. It's like, if you don't need me and I don't have something you need, then how can I sell anything? Like I'm not going to ever be able to sell anything because then, right?
Yeah.
So it seems for me, it just like puts you in this catch 22 of like, okay, well then, how am I going to sell? Right.
Yeah.
Um, and I think, the words that I've been wrapping around it for myself anyways, in the abundance matrix, it's, we touched on this too. It's like it when we are in our power, when we are sovereign, and of course all of us are on an evolutionary path of becoming more and more sovereign every day, even in our sovereignty, it really is an owning of like who we are in the bigger picture, and then an understanding that we only have to play our own.
Yeah.
And so other people do need our gifts.
Yeah.
It's not because they're not in their power. It's not because they're not already sovereign themselves. It's just our gift plays a different role in the bigger picture or the bigger vision or
Exactly. Exactly. Because we're all different and that is our power.
right.
And that when we work together as sovereign beings, we can really support each other rather than like, because we do need each other, but it's not like I'm the only person that can solve this problem. And I think maybe it's even the distinction between needing and wanting too,
Mhm.
is
Yeah.
like, I want to work with you.
Hmm.
Oh, like,
Exactly.
and that feels so much more powerful to me and to you if
Right.
like I want to work with you because I've chosen you,
Yes.
instead of like I know I need you. I need like that feels like a totally different vibration,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know. And it actually makes me think of and this is interesting, this is coming to me, but there's this book that I'm reading, Brand Seduction, and it's it actually looks at the fashion industry in particular,
Hmm.
and the like unconscious associations that actually drive behavior.
Wow.
And So it studies like neuromarketing and like
Mhm.
what's really going on
Mhm.
when we make decisions as humans. And what's so powerful about the fashion industry is like usually like sure we need clothes on our backs, but what we
Sure.
buy it's like we don't, maybe we do need that thing because we don't have that particular piece or something, but
Mhm.
mostly it's driving want, you
Mhm.
know, instead of like, oh, I need that. I
Mhm.
mean, it feels like that sometimes. And the fashion industry definitely, you know, has its manipulations.
Mhm.
But I think that's interesting. It's more a market about want than it is about need in a lot of
Yes.
ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
And um, I think that's really the part about seduction and manipulation that's challenging is because manipulation and seduction kind of go hand in hand. Like,
Yeah.
you know, that it's seen as very deceptive, but at the same time, we all want to be seductive and we
Right.
all want to be seduced.
Right.
So
Exactly.
it's like, how do we seduce for the win-win-win? How do we sell and market for the win-win-win without
Right.
being manipulative?
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things that in my sex therapy background, that we would really go over with couples when we were in like couples coaching groups and stuff, in the whole, we had this whole model of the cycle of sex, but one of the biggest components of it is the seduction piece. And a lot of things that a lot of times where couples get stuck is like, whose job is it to seduce,
Mhm.
right? And usually the couple has a very like fixed way of thinking whose job that is, right?
Yeah.
And they can get stuck there. And it's like to open them up to thinking that they should live a seductive life, A, right? They should just live a more seductive life. And when you're living a seductive life, you're seductive,
Yeah.
right? And that that balance between being also, if you're stuck in one role or the other, like to be able to switch and like be the one who's seduced or be the one who's seducing, right? That whole paradigm of it. And the other thing that came to me from that, from my sex therapy background, is we would talk a lot of times what would end up coming up, especially when we were coaching like more Christian couples and stuff, because they would just have some more conservative views of sex usually that they're trying to break through.
Yeah.
But it was this idea of, isn't that manipulation? And hasn't God called us not to be manipulative? And the doctor that I was trained by, he would always come back with, I've been doing this for 30 years and I've decided, in many ways, like, we're incapable of not manipulating. We're always manipulating. It's just to what end?
Mhm.
To what end am I manipulating to your good?
Yeah.
And am I manipulating you? Like, what was coming to me when you were sharing your piece just then about seduction is like, when we're in the want, I want to work with you and you want to work with me. What we're manipulating is creation. It's whatever we're creating together. We're manipulating a new thing into the world. We're manipulating your business that's in one form into another form. So
Yeah.
there is always manipulation, because at the end, I think like creation is manipulation of matter.
Yeah.
But if we're trying to manipulate somebody in a shadow contract so that we get what we want, well, now we're kind of like, to me, like leaning into like the dark magic of it all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's the intent, really. Yeah. Yeah. Wow, that's beautiful. Yeah, it's like give take relationship before the other than a give receive relationship. Yeah,
Yes.
the get take relationship is in that shadow contract of like,
Yes.
you know, I'm gonna get something from you. And I feel like that's what we can get stuck in.
Yeah.
We're in selling is like, oh, I'm trying to get their money. And it's
Yes.
like, no, you're in a give receive relationship. They're going to give you money and they're going to receive value
Hmm.
from you.
Hmm.
And yeah, so when we're seducing with a intent of, I want you, you want me, we're going to have a give receive relationship,
Hmm.
that feels so much more for the win 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 and
Right.
seductive,
Right.
really, than like, oh no, I'm going to be deceived and something's going to be taken from me.
Right. And I think when you're on the end of like that shadow contract of I'm trying to get a sale from this person because I need money, or, whatever it is. What we end up with is the obligation, which is what feels the worst, right? I mean, obligation feels horrible.
Yeah.
But that's how, for me, that's what I would notice, a couple of times when I was following that model a few years back, is I could feel the weight of the obligation I felt to now deliver. It just put me in a different energy.
Yeah.
It is about resonance.
Yeah. Yeah. An obligation, it feels like that's definitely like you've taken power from them and you're obligated.
Hmm.
It's like the power dynamic, it's not equal. And so it feels like an
Right.
imbalance.
Right. And that give and receive, how you're highlighting, that is like the infinity symbol, right? Because there's a giving, and if you're giving me yourself and your ideas, and then I'm receiving them, but I'm running them through my gifts, but I'm giving them back to you. I'm
Yeah.
giving all of it back to you. It's not mine. I'm giving it back to you in a different form, with greater clarity, with more, whatever that is. And then it just, that keeps going. And that's where the expansion is. That's where all the new innovative ideas are.
Yeah.
um, and I think even in this new space that we're all in, creating businesses, there's a lot of exploration, I would say. Like, I'm in the exploration of, like, what does it look like to collaborate inside this new abundance grid?
Yeah.
It Because the mind can only, like, go back and look at the data that we've had up until now, right? So the mind's always like, well, then we need to create a contract that upfront before, what's yours and what's mine. That's basically what the mind does, right? Well, then
Yeah.
we collaborate, what's yours and what's mine.
Yeah.
And so that's an interesting one to look at as well.
Yeah. And I love that you said like manipulation. I feel like just like symbols and just like magic, it's like it's neutral. Manipulation, it has a lot of negative charge around it,
Right.
just like a lot of like symbols have negative charges around them.
Yeah.
But there's always a polarity. There's
Yeah.
always like a a positive side to it too. And it's actually in itself, it's neutral.
Hmm.
So manipulation is really just like you're shaping, you're creating. And that's
Yes,
what
it's
that
a great way to be. Yeah.
co-collaboration looks like, is like, well, what can we shape together? Like,
Yeah.
what can we actually manipulate together?
Right.
Instead of like, I'm going to manipulate you for dark reasons. You're not going to know what the outcome is going to be. It's just
Right.
going to be like this, like deceptive thing, dark magic. But whereas like working together and collaborating, manipulation can be like we're shaping something positive together.
Right.
Just like I feel like it's just like the word influence too. I think influence, manipulation, and magic and symbols all are neutral.
Yeah.
It depends on the intent.
Yes, the intent. And intention is something I think we have to keep honing. Like, it's not a once and done, right? We have to ask ourselves consistently. Yeah. The
Yeah, that's
intention.
what's so, I feel like, so important about branding is you're always, because you don't just brand once, you're always branding. You do it always.
Hmm.
Um, and that's really, it's about like holding the intention of like, who am I being and who am I becoming? What's my
Hmm.
intention around that?
Hmm.
And yeah, you're always honing that because it can, pivot, it can shift,
Hmm.
but it's honing that intention. That's what at least I see branding as.
Yes, absolutely. And it's like a refinement that just keeps going. Like, the longer you've been on that journey, and there's all these mini rebirths of everything, right? And you just, and that's why, to me, in the abundance realm of business, there's no separation between you and your business, right? And you and your life and all. It's like there's not like this compartmentalization, which served us up until a time. To be able to compartmentalize was a high skill, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But now it's like we're in this new expanded place. We can dissolve even that, and that refinement is more, it as we refine who we are by letting go of everything that we're not, over and over again. Our business clarifies and rebirths, and
Yeah.
therefore our branding upgrades.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Because work life balance, like in the old terms of that, it always feels like no one was able to figure it out. It was
No.
constantly like this like lopsided thing. But I think alternatively, like living in urge and living in flow, it's like if you need to take a rest, then take a rest. If you feel like working, then work.
Right.
It's like you don't even need to
Simple.
balance it. It's not like your intention is just, I'm going to follow my urge and I'm going to trust that wherever it takes me is going to allow me to feel balanced as a
Yes.
byproduct.
Yes.
And that's how I live now. And I feel like I have so much more energy than I used to. I used to feel like drained, like I used to have to take a break. And I think it was because of these like shadow contracts with selling and marketing, where I just like, I felt like anytime I was trying to put my creative energy into how do I market, how do I sell, how do I get this going, it was really draining me. And then I felt like I couldn't take breaks because I then needed to like get stuff going. And
Yes.
instead, like just living in urge, like I feel like so much more is happening. Like I'm in synergy with my brand because I'm just being that instead of doing. Like Amanda says, like focus more on being than doing.
Right.
It just feels more natural and easier, and it's amazing. And I feel like it's mainly because I feel like I've dissolved a lot of my shadow contracts specifically around marketing. Marketing is just who I am being. It's marketing, like the definition that I think marketing really is, it's about cultivating the beliefs that somebody needs to at least be aware of to work with you. That's really what I feel like marketing is.
Yeah.
And like marketing and propaganda are also very similar. Like I've done some research there and read some books about propaganda and beliefs and really how beliefs drive our behavior. Because they do. But that's what marketing really is. And it is a fine line with propaganda, but propaganda gets into the shadow contract manipulation side of things because it's deceiving. It's cultivating beliefs that ultimately are not for the win-win-win. But when you're cultivating beliefs that are in line for the win-win-win, that you're going to win, I'm going to win, the planet's going to win, then it is a win-win-win.
Yes, it ends up being that. Yeah, I think where we can, especially as empaths, get off track there is in that old paradigm of like looking out and seeing what other people need so that you can then meet that need.
Yeah.
Versus, like you were just pointing out so beautifully, like knowing what your values and principles are, who you are, what you stand for, and you're just making that very clear to anyone who would be looking in on, you know, on your business or you or whatever, so that they can just clearly see who you are.
Yeah.
You know, and then decide for themselves if that, you know, if that sparks a resonance in them, like, oh, I just want to work with you.
Yeah.
You know, and that to me, the past 2 years of my life has really shown that to me, that when we can just show up in spaces authentically and speak our truth and our values and um, basically radiate our true our resonance, right? That resonance of frequency of who we are, because we can always bring that. We can, that's an unfailing thing that we can bring. We don't have to really do enrollment. You know, people can have a quick conversation with us in 15 or 20 minutes and they know right away whether they're just like resonate with us or not.
Yeah.
And vice versa, like we should both feel that, right? Should be a yes for both. And it just takes out a lot of that, this hall jumping through all of these hoops and an enrollment call to, you know, get people to commit or, you know, whatever that is. So
I mean, really, like I feel like the people that I work with now are just people that saw me. I haven't any of the people I'm working with, I didn't sell
Yeah,
at all.
exactly. Same.
Like, even as a designer, like they didn't see my work. They were just like, I like you. I want to work with you.
I don't know what it is. I just, I resonate with you. You know, I feel like you see me. I want to work with you. It's like, cool. I feel the same. Let's do it.
Yeah. And it feels so much more natural and easy. It's just like relationships. It's like, you know, selling feels like you're trying to convince somebody to go on a date with you. Whereas like you just like meet somebody and you're like, do you want to go out? And they're like, yeah. It
Yeah.
feels so much better.
Right.
Yeah. It feels like you're really wanted instead of like you're trying to get something.
Hmm.
And yeah, that is so much more seductive. So much more like turn on is involved there.
Right.
And
Right.
which means like whatever you create together is going to be like that much more in tune and aligned with what you really want and more exciting in general.
Hmm. Yes. And then, I mean, if the old way, I mean, even I'm just thinking all the way back, like, 11 years ago when I was taking my first coaching certification, it was like this, just get on the phone with as many people as you can and give them a free taste of coaching, like that whole thing. And there can definitely be a time when you're in that experimenting phase, right? Of like experimenting with your gifts and the people that are drawn to your gifts and in how you work. And that there's definitely a place for that, but to stay in that is definitely to stay in that lack paradigm of listening for what this person needs and becoming that,
Yeah.
which then sets you up to have to keep showing up as whatever that is.
Yeah.
If that's not your natural gifts and what your genius that you just can show up and do so effortlessly, the longer you serve that person, the heavier that relationship becomes.
And that's manipulating yourself.
There you go. Yes, that's so true. I'll manipulate myself
Not in
into
a way that's in line with who you are. You're trying to
yeah,
shape yourself to fit something that somebody else needs rather
so
than
true.
something that's aligned with what you need.
That's true. Like I need to become what somebody else's needs so that I can build a business or make it, whatever the fill in the blank.
But instead, really what we're trying to do is find the win-win-win, which is understanding what people need, understanding what you need, understanding what the planet needs, and then building something, co-creating something together that fits everybody's needs. That truly is, and that is design. It's understanding all of the different things that's needed and finding a creative solution that works for all those things instead of
Yeah.
just trying to like make sacrifices because one person needs this and you're trying to fit what they need. That's what belonging really is too. That's what belonging to yourself is belonging to what you need and what you want, and then you know making agreements with other people that
Yes.
like this and standing ground, like standing your ground in your boundaries, that
Hmm.
you don't harbor resentment in those shadow contracts of lack.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think if we don't know, that's one of my favorite things that you say, by the way, like belonging to yourself. Um, I think if we don't know and have committed to belonging to ourselves and we're still looking for belonging, we can easily, you know, fall into that trap, and belonging is Brene Brown, it's like it's an innate human need. We do need to belong. So if we haven't met that need on a human level, that can definitely trip us up in business.
Yeah. But then Brene says in, I believe it's The Power of Vulnerability in her TED Talk, that the only difference between the people that struggled for belonging and the people that really knew belonging was belief. That was the one thing that was the difference.
They
People that
believe
struggled
they
for it
belong.
did not believe that they were worthy of belonging. But the people that just found it, that just felt it, they believed they were worthy of it.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah. But those are the people that belong to themselves because they
Right.
believe they're worthy. So
It-
it's like a part of this, I think, dissolving these shadow contracts and selling and marketing is
Mhm.
believing that you are worthy of belonging and that you're believing in your value.
Mhm. Yes.
Yeah.
And then to me, pricing, because that's another thing we're kind of throwing around, right?
Yeah.
Pricing becomes about a value exchange.
Exactly.
And it's just because even, I would say even in the past 2 years, as I've been mentored by, people who are definitely, living in 5D and like living in the abundance matrix, there's still been this like, there's like a little bit of energy that's left there where people are like, well, do you decide what your services are worth and you set that value, and then you just don't come off of it, like you just put that stake in the ground. And I find that even that limiting. I think it's good to have that range for sure. Like you need to, see where you're at, look at what you're putting into something and not undervalue what you're delivering. And there's times where, you can see an opening for something that you might do something totally different with a client in the moment if you're following your own urge, and you can see where there's a reason to change what you deviate from your whatever that set number is that you've given yourself,
Yeah. Yeah.
because you might see the long-term value,
Mhm.
right? You might see um that this is like, I could give a little bit of value here now, and this relationship could turn into something that would be really huge down the road for the planet, for you know these people that are starting to create new grids that are not inside the lack matrix. So we're in a time where I feel like that's why I love that Amanda always comes back to urge. Like, what is your urge in the moment,
Yeah.
you know
Yeah. And what like price feels exciting,
yeah.
what feels like you're undervaluing yourself, because it does feel like it's this, like you do have to tune your pricing to sense like where you are at and what you
Yes.
feel comfortable holding space for, because it does feel like
Yes.
if you take on like, isn't that why like people that win the lottery end up losing so much of it, is because like they energetically are
Couldn't hold.
not prepared to hold on to that much wealth,
Yep.
you know so like you do have to expand that energetic ability to receive that much, or it's like it'll just disappear. I mean, like I know they just like spend it, but it's like that's what happens.
Yeah.
You're not energetically prepared to hold on to that
Right. It
much.
just
And
like
so
goes right through you instead of being able to be held and contained.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then what came up when you were talking was like what we had talked about before, where people, you seem to see this pattern and so do I, where people who deliver the most seem to be charging the littlest, like the
Mhm.
least. And
Mhm.
then people that don't deliver that much charge a lot.
Mhm.
And it's all about like this perceived value
Mhm.
that, people that charge a lot, they perceive themselves to be super valuable, and therefore they're able to charge that because other people see that as valuable. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they have to deliver that level of value. And so I'd love to get into that a little bit, because that one still kind of like boggles my mind, but I've seen it.
Yeah, and I see it consistently still.
Yeah.
And it's that's where like there's like that whole, like, if you've taken any money mindset or like upping your prices kind of like mentorship or programs or whatever, it's like well, whatever you believe you're worth, you can charge and somebody will pay it. And that, I think that is true. And I think that we could deceive ourselves and by changing our belief system into something that like, I mean, that is a belief system. I feel like a lot of those people that you see at the top end of the transformation space, like they have this belief of like, I'm unstoppable, like I can, I'm creating so much and doing so much. But there's a lot of people in their shadow that have taken risks and invested tons of money in their programs and not gotten the value. Their lives are not changed, their business isn't making any more money. So there's a mismatch there of something, like they're not actually delivering. And sometimes it could just be like, it wasn't aligned, like they weren't, it wasn't a correct um you know client consumer relationship or whatever. um and that's why, like, I think there's a to me there's a belief too of underneath that, like, to make, like, let's just pick to get to six figures. Like, to get to six figures, I have got to have like a huge following,
Mhm.
right? And I've got to have tons of people that are interested in my work. And the people that I know, that I respect the most, that have created businesses that are getting up in the mid six figures, headed towards $1 million a year in their income, that I actually respect and actually think deliberately, they may only have 500 people following them, but the clients that they work with are so aligned.
Yep.
They're not trying to speak to everyone.
Yep.
They have literally embraced, like, I am okay that I'm not for everyone, I'm only for certain people. and they very much have an integrity about making sure that they're delivering,
Yeah.
for their clients, which really puts a lot of responsibility on the front end of, like, when you were talking about money and being able to hold money, like if you charge somebody, $10,000 for a product that you are or even an energetic exchange, whatever it is that you healing work or whatever, if they can't hold that value, right? If they aren't capable of holding the value that you're going to deliver, even if you deliver $10,000 worth of value,
Mhm.
if they can't hold it, the transformation won't be there.
Yeah.
So it's also a discerning, right, on both ends, of are they ready for this? Like in your branding work, I could just for an example, right? There's a certain place that somebody needs to be in their business and their awareness of their gifts and being able to deliver their gifts
Exactly.
to be ready to go through your bigger product, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you would discern that. You wouldn't just sell somebody who just literally decided, 5 weeks ago, I have a gift that I haven't been using and I want to build a business today,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Exactly. Like yeah, yeah. And that's why I have my system set up the way that I do with my brand tuning sessions, which are, these like 2-hour sessions just to get a little bit more tuned with who you are and what you're
Right.
doing. The brand reading to understand your brand a little bit better.
Hmm.
And the brand reflecting is,
Hmm.
these are different stages that I feel like people are in.
Hmm.
And yeah, like immediately it's probably not a great idea to just immediately invest in a website. It's probably a better idea to explore and experiment, like you said,
Yeah.
rather than me just trying to sell a website that does not sit well with me. And even thinking about like, doing, this is something I've considered recently, of doing like VIP days, of like getting somebody a really fast result. That's
Hmm.
not in alignment with me, because I want
Hmm.
to take my time with somebody. I
Hmm.
really want to make sure that what I'm delivering is aligned with who they are. And the VIP day, like financially, it's like, yeah, oh yeah, I could make like 5,000 in a day.
Right.
Cool. But
Cool. Yeah.
but it doesn't feel right to me. It
Right.
just doesn't, and so there's so many people that do that, that are like, yeah, this is how I
Absolutely.
was able to, get the income that I have, like do VIP days. And it just, and that's, everybody, I feel like in this industry, the business industry, is just teaching what works for them. And we need to have discernment of like what really feels right to us. Like,
Yes.
sure, that might work for them, and that might be perfect for their space and their way of operating. But what works for me,
Yeah.
and
And
that's your
how
brand.
do I work? Like
Yeah.
how does my energy work? And that's a big piece of what I do in my coaching is, helping people know, like there was a robin that just landed on my window, or the branch outside my window. Um Helping people know who they really are, how their energy really works, which means like then you're in integrity by like knowing, like, for you, like your work is so intimate, right? And intimacy comes in layers. Like we don't just, I mean, we can, it's not right or wrong, but like jump in and have sex with somebody on the first day for 12 hours. We probably skipped some getting to know. I mean, we can do that, but it's not going to create the intimacy level that we're looking for, probably. Right. And so it's when we take the time to slow down, which is tantric, right? To slow down the process. And with your work, what I see is like at each turn of you helping them really refine their branding and get to know like what it is they're up to, really. There's an integration in that slowness
Yeah.
of and a refining that just happens automatically by going through the process, which builds an intimacy, I think, between the person and their brand so that they get the opposite result of what you're saying. Like just do the VIP day and get the result, and bam, there's a website that doesn't resonate. The
Yeah.
slower process, like it creates this integrity between the person and their website, where that person's like, that really reflects me, who I am, what I have to offer, and what I want to create in the world.
Yeah.
And they can feel like it's a very foundational piece of their business.
Yeah.
Very different result.
Yeah. Very different. Yeah, and I feel like I even had shadow contracts building my process for a while because I was like, well, people are going to expect this to go faster and they need things by like yesterday. And so there was like all these like things that I felt like I had to be creating my program around, you
Mhm.
know, but belonging to myself and being like, well, what really works for me? What feels right for me? It is like taking our time and building the relationship so that I can actually understand the other person instead of just being like, well, here's what I see right now. And like we're always evolving and changing. And that's been like the tricky part about, working in branding is
Mhm.
identity is a concept. We can wake up and be kind of a different person, the next
Yeah.
day, even.
Yeah.
We're
Yes.
always evolving and changing, and it can be rapid and it can be slow.
Yes.
And so something can feel out of resonance really quickly.
Yes.
So that's what I feel like slowing down helps us do is really start to understand ourselves and find what is resonating and then start to make subtle adjustments,
Mhm.
fine tune something
Mhm.
instead of just expecting there to be this massive change overnight, which I feel like
Yeah.
so many designers and design programs are set up that way.
Mhm.
That was what I was trying to mimic for a long time in my business that just didn't work.
Mhm.
I had to really find what was working for me, and that's what works for me
Mhm.
is understanding, going slower and fine tuning subtle adjustments,
Mhm.
not the overnight
Yep.
change kind of thing.
Mhm. Yeah, and I guess like as I am listening to us talking about the slower down version, the slowed down version, I suppose there might be people's gifts out there who are there to just kind of like make this big impact and move on. They, their energy might work like that. So I
Yeah.
don't want to say like, oh, that's wrong. Like I even know some people like even Sandy Freshy that's in this group. She's like, she always says she turns
Yeah.
lights on for people, right?
Yeah.
So and she does. And so it's like you have a session with her and it takes you 3 months to like integrate everything that she kind of gives you. But that's sort of how her energy works. Like she's not pretending to be this slow like integration process, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's about being clear, like this is what my energy does. Yeah. And
Yep, exactly. And that's what's so important about understanding your brand is knowing what works for you. And that's the problem with like the mimic program is like everybody's just teaching what works for them.
yes.
And if you're trying to exactly mimic what somebody else is doing, that may not work for you
Yeah.
because it just may not be in resonance with you. But you have to have the discernment to understand this just isn't feeling good. This is draining me for some reason. Well, why is it draining you?
Mm-hmm.
There may be
Right.
some sort of shadow there that's not working,
Yeah.
that's just like you may not be able to see it totally, but it's draining you.
Yeah.
And that's what I've experienced in building marketing systems and things,
Mm-hmm.
especially the selling with the script. It was like that was draining to me. Doing
Yes.
enrollment calls, having
Mm-hmm.
a free enrollment call felt
Mm-hmm.
very, very draining to me. I did not like that.
Yeah.
But I felt like I had to because it was like that's what everybody else was doing.
Yep. Yep. And then you like get the 10 of those scheduled in a week. And the next thing you know, like your business feels so heavy and like you don't even want to do it anymore. At
Yeah.
least that's where I landed.
Yeah.
It's like,
And
I don't
then
even
it's
want
like,
to do
well,
this.
where's the room to actually fulfill on the commitments that I have made?
Right.
I'm always selling.
Yes.
And so like Kyle Cease has a great video on like from selling to being. It's
Mm-hmm.
like if you're just being, you don't even really need to sell because people just want
They're
to.
drawn to you. Yeah. Yeah. And it's back to that resonance. Like what resonance, being in alignment with your own resonance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. This is such a needed conversation. I love it.
Yeah, yeah, me too. Yeah, I feel like this has been what I wanted to talk about for so
Mhm.
long, but it's like just recently I feel like I've been able to understand
Mhm.
what I was feeling about this because I
Mhm.
felt like for so long I was like, why am I just in resistance about marketing and selling?
Yeah.
Why is this such a struggle? And I
Mhm.
feel like so many people feel that way, that it's a struggle to market and to sell.
Mhm.
And they're not really sure why. And it's because of this. It's because of this like shadow side of it, the
Yep.
manipulation and the things that are draining them, because it's not the right thing for them to be doing.
Right.
You just need to figure out what really works for them and what turns them on in their
Yeah.
business, that helps them be, instead of just doing a thing, they're being their thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it takes, which I think is why like our work resonates, so much together, is it is in that slowing down and just recognizing that each person, like to see the person and recognize them for who they are, to be able to turn all those lights on and like look at things from their own design, their human design, their soul's design, the design of how they do what they do, and know who they are, and let that inform how they even market, how they even any of that. And most people, within the transformation space are still in that mimic of like, here's the 12 steps to build your business the way I built my business.
Mhm.
And um and there's probably very few people out there that is going to genuinely work for,
Yep.
right?
Those are the people that they feature and they're like, look, it worked for them.
Exactly. Like went through 100 people and they've got four that like took off from it. And I mean, I literally remember a very high end coach that everybody would know the name of being in a course about all of this, and him saying, it doesn't matter if you help 100 people and really only five people got help. Like it's just you keep moving because you're moving the needle for them somehow. Like don't get caught up in that. Just focus on the five that you did. I'm
Mhm.
like, that doesn't feel good to me.
Yeah.
It does not feel good to me.
Yeah. I mean, the flip side of that is like you can really only teach what's worked for you and what other ways you've seen works for other people. But it really takes understanding somebody to be like, well, let's try something. I feel like that's really where design is so valuable, is like, let's design something that maybe has never been done before. Let's like take something from this and combine it with something from over here to create a new type of system
Hmm.
that really feels good to you. That's like really the value of design, instead
Yes.
of just replicating formulas that have worked for those five people.
Right.
It's really creating something, designing something new.
Hmm. Yeah. And it's getting back into like following their urge, and allowing something new to come forward.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because
Because
I
new,
mean, we don't realize how much we can still be caught up in just trying to keep using old things that don't work because we don't know what else to do to try.
yeah, and new can be scary too.
Yes.
It's just like, because like Kyle C says, it's like we can usually measure what we can lose, but we
Yeah.
can't see what we can gain.
I mean,
You know,
yeah.
when we try something new, it's like, well, is this gonna work? I don't know. Let's try
Let's
it.
try
Let's
it.
And that's the value of taking things a little bit slower and doing things by iterations,
Yep.
is you can prototype things. You don't have to immediately go to like this big final finished piece. It's like
Mhm,
just like baby steps. Like let's
mhm.
iterate forward instead of just thinking it's like this big thing and now it's done forever. No, it's always a work in progress.
Right.
Always a work in progress.
Exactly.
Your brand and your branding is always on, always going, always a work in progress.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like I think like especially our minds, like they want that like one and done, and this is set and I don't have to think about it anymore kind of, thing. But I think it's a really a false sense of safety.
Yeah.
And to really really own that the true safety of is within us, and in staying in resonance or in touch with what isn't or is in resonance all the time, and being fluid and knowing like if something feels off, like that's where our safety is in knowing, I know when something doesn't feel right, therefore I'm not going to be blindsided
Exactly.
by something. Yeah.
That requires being in tune with our intuition and our urge,
Yes.
instead of just living in our heads, like I
Yes.
feel like so many of us do.
Yeah, it's like we want to just like set it on autopilot. There's definitely always like, you know, certain things like to drive, we need to like have some of those like instinctual things we don't have to think about anymore. But when it comes to our creativity and it comes to that part of our life, the security, I wholeheartedly believe is just in paying attention to how we feel. If it feels off, something is off, and down the road that is not going to create the safety and security that you need.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Oh,
This
this is a great conversation.
was a great conversation.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I feel like we've been mulling over it for a while, and like all the language just kind of came in, so that was cool.
Yeah, that was really good. Yeah, I feel like so many of these pieces that I've been thinking about have just converged and love it.
Yeah.
That's good.
Thank you for doing this. This is
Yeah, thank
awesome.
you. This was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope,
Hopefully some people will find some things for themselves in it, or add to it for sure. I'm sure
yeah, I
there's
want to
there,
hear feedback. Like whoever's watching this, what do you think?
yeah. What
What
comes up for you? What's your experience? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I want this to be a bigger conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because like I said, like I've been feeling this way for a long time, but it's only recently I feel like I've had the language and the words to describe like what was feeling off
Mm-hmm.
and why, for me at least in my business, and how to counteract that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Same. Awesome. All right, guys, take care.
Yeah, you too.